whole of the Old Testament is written between those things, and it's all about God's people dealing with empire, one way or another, having their own kings, having been in exile, having been slaves. I mean, they got a history. And the other thing about that being Jewish, which is really crazy, is people's cultures do not survive empires. Usually, they come, they take you over, and then you assimilate and you disappear. The Jews just did not disappear. And for four times when they were liquidated, 4 different ways in which empire had to express with them. But when the Romans came, you know, really final solution, they did it really big. Pretty much liquidated them. And then this crazy sect survived it. And no sooner did they survive it and get embraced by the Romans, did the Romans Romanize it. It became part of the Roman Empire. We call it the Holy Roman Catholic Church, whatever. But we have certainly lost who the original Jesus is all about. And that's what I'm here to try to tell you, that that's what I've been trying to live and preach my last 50 years, and nobody wants to listen to it. Not in this country. Nobody I can see. So, I will give you a chance to ask the question before I jump into taking the questions that you guys have already put on before I gave the talk. But you might have a question that might be more relevant because you've heard me talk for 20 minutes. Yeah.
I would say after, because you were saying you got really into religion after your senior year, I think in university, or was it high school?
High school. When I went to college, I really started to take Jesus seriously.
Yeah. When you started to take Jesus seriously, were you like shocked, or like how was like all the emotions like coming in?
Well, you know what? Every one of us are born into a. I mean, I'm 74 now, and I'm looking back, and I'm saying, like, you know, by the time I was 12, there was some kind of default personality going on. Couldn't help it. They put it on me when I was 2. Read the ways in which human development happens, and you basically understand you're going to deal with the personality and the person you are by the time you're like 4 or whatever, something like that. Like, it's not a bad thing. This is the other thing. Whoever you are, your default person, it's the gift God's given you to work with to find out who you are as a human being. See, now, this is something where I'm a modern person, not stuck in the 2nd century. This is a truth that none of us can deny. We live in a time when we are mindful that there are like, what, 10 billion human beings on the planet? We live at a time when we know we're really fucking up in a big way in the environment. You instinctively know this. And that the species is what? Up for grabs. Right. And we can bring our own demise on us instantaneously with the nukes, or inevitably in which the way we interface with the planet and bring extinction to the species because we're killing ourselves in the womb. Now, none of this is superstition. All of this is like bone rock, modern, in your face reality. Are we all on the same page? Does anybody doubt that they ain't where we're at? Well, how do you find hope? Who are we if we're at the last end of this? Like, I think I'm gonna die of old age, but I really can't say that about you guys. So, I'm only painting a bleak picture, not because I'm superstitious or I believe in Jesus, because that has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with what people of science. We know facts. We buy all this stuff. We know how the world works in a sense, and we know we're really fun. The selling point for me here in Iowa is that in my lifetime, half of the soil God gave us to have for the rest of the human race We pissed off, lost it, threw it down the river, made it part of the global warming scene. And the land we have left is like deadless. We put oil shit in it, take oil stuff out of it. That's terrible. Yeah, it's war on the planet when we're not at war. So I'm only telling you what's up grab for me is after 50 years struggling with this is we really have lost the sense of what it means to be a human. We have less and less space that's human space, and more divided, creating distance between us. This intentional work of mercy is an intention to create human space where it's lacking, and do it in a way in which it's, I'm a man of faith, magical. It's holy. It's what God wants us to do. And for all of that magical, holy God wants us to do, the best thing I can tell you about it, it's human. Where we can have human space and show empathy and love for each other. Now, yeah, we survive by people writing checks and helping us pay our bills. But our work is serving people and creating space where people who aren't normally nice to each other, we ask them to be nice and we serve them. And I think we're creating human space. And the more space we create like that, the better chance we're going to have the empathy to do what we need to do to survive as human beings. Because we're not moving ahead as human beings, we're moving ahead as anti-human beings. And if I read my text 2,000 years ago, those are the two options. You either fulfill yourself as a human being or go to hell. Yeah. Well, hell, wow, what's that about? Hell, man. Well, you may not want to believe in hell, but we all know what we're looking at as humans if we don't get our act together. And I'm suggesting the way to be human is to take care of the life you were given and do the best you can with that human life. Because that's the life you're going to be held accountable for. Somewhere. If there is an accounting brief. But it doesn't matter. We have to be human because that's what it means to be human. If we miss the mark. Now I know there's 10 billion people there, but I'm an anarchist. You know, an anarchist believes that the individual has a power to be true, despite the rest of the world. And yeah.
Speaking on the term like anarchists and you being generally anti-authoritarian, how does that affect your protest work, and how do you deal with times when authority may be needed, like when you're trying to organize things, you run for charity houses essentially, and those need an authority in charge of them to help keep them up and stable. How do you deal with being anti-authoritarian but needing authority in certain spaces?
Okay, we have a governing system. It's called always be nonviolent. So that will always limit the methods. Although, if you're going to do anything effective, you have to limit it, narrow it, and do it. I think you can be effective nonviolently. We have a long history where I can point to different ways in which nonviolent protest has been effective. And then I can even make a case that when I do civil disobedience, I'm doing the most American thing a person can do. Because this country does have a tradition of civil disobedience and protest and nonviolence. So it's all part of that. Now, are we being effective? Well, clearly we're not. I've been telling you we're losing the battle my whole lifetime. It's a bummer. Okay? But is it worth doing? I believe it's worth doing. If nothing else, to be responsible for the humanity God gave me. I'm now speaking God. But if you don't like God, the humanity is giving you. And if you don't measure up to who you are, like plants become plants, birds become birds. They don't go off mark. The only thing in creation that gets it screwed up are humans. And when I'm talking creation, I'm a modern person. So I'm only talking about a 50-mile radius on a very hard rock, and a planet and a sun in a universe of 1 billion galaxies. Got it? So we're very, very small, very, very insignificant. But who cares? Here I am, very, very small, very, very insignificant. I'm here, I have a reason, I'm human, and I want to be the best human being I can be at some of the worst times in our history. That's how I see it. I think love is the mark. And I think when St. Paul is another guy. You know, you see St. Paul, you know, everybody has mixed feelings about Paul, but I read Paul, and my modern discipline tells me there's a genuine Paul, then there's the mixed up Paul, like years later people deal with this stuff, and then there's, Paul didn't even write this, but we attribute it to him. But I don't care, I like all of the book. The book has a through line, and the through line for Paul is love. And you remember that thing, love is this, love is that. He's got about a 15-verse thing about love, and I'm going like, who does this? No one loves that well. You gotta love your mother, your brother, your sisters, the neighbor, the stranger, your enemy, all the time, no give up. That's why nobody hits the mark. The mark is love. And we hit it, we try to hit it, but no one hits it. That's why we need the blood of Jesus. A little forgiveness here. You know, we're working on it. We can compensate for where we missed the mark. Now this is the problem. This is where the sins of omission get us. If we're following this guy, Jesus, and he wasn't for wealth, and he wasn't for war, and he wasn't for empire, but if we don't hear our leaders telling us at the pulpit, hey, the folks who are supposed to be the leaders of the Christian church say, watch out for U.S. wealth, watch out for U.S. wars, watch out for the U.S. empire. Have anybody ever heard that from your church, Catholic or otherwise? Maybe that's the problem. That's where we're at. All right. Questions? Go ahead.
As part of a Christian following early into life, but started drifting agnostic over the later end, I wanted to ask, there was an interpretation done by someone somewhere at some time that said something along the lines of, beware the smog of greed, for it shall consume thy soul. As such, how do we, metaphorically speaking, clear that smog and try to reach out and help other people into that if they themselves are consumed by said smog? If people see the money, see the power above us, how will they reach out their hand if we're reaching out to them?
You know, there's a lot of charity going on, a lot of nonprofits going on. But I'm not going to speak against that stuff. We really need people to be generous for their resources and try to bridge the gap between the people who have and don't have. That really needs to be done. The government should be doing that, and the goddamn billionaire is not going to let us do it. Aside from that, everybody starts with where they're at. And I've come to understand you physically really need to go somewhere and feed somebody. You physically really need to go somewhere where a homeless person is at and you help facilitate them and find shelter, bring them in. What we're missing is that human thing. Now, we got social workers, we got people we're paying to be out there, all God bless them. Nowhere near what we ought to have going. What we do at our place, nobody's a professional. We got professional people, but when we act as Catholic workers, when we say we're just regular citizens, opening up our door to people who wish to come to our house and we will feed them. You really need to get your ass out and really have a human encounter with the poor. I read one meme that says, you know, if you don't have a personal reference of a poor person when you get to heaven, you're not going to get there. Yeah, now if you're rich and you're writing checks, keep writing your checks, but the next step is disinvest. The real step is to live in communes with other people and do the works of mercy. The best thing you all can learn to do right now is figure out how you can learn to live below the poverty line with 4 or 5 other people in a commune. Because those are the units of family we need to develop. The nuclear family is just the rot of the culture, because it allows individuals just to go anywhere they want, do anything without any accountability to get into generational issues. Oh, Lord, the assimilation into this culture is really bad. I'm Italian American, and we lost it. I mean, my great nephews and nieces, they don't have a clue what it means to Italian. I'll tell you a joke in our family. My brother Joe, his granddaughter, Josie Rose, her father is Rodney Filer. Rodney was a football player at Dowling. Just a wonderful guy, big black guy. And he married Joe's daughter, Josie Rose, and their daughter, Josie Rose, and she's going to college. She's playing basketball. Wonderful girl, just really wonderful people. She calls my dad, Joe, up, her grandpa. She says, "Grandpa, I now know what it means to be Italian." He says, "Yeah, how'd they find out?" "I watched The Godfather 4 movies." Folks, really, that's tragic. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood in Des Moines. The aunts and the uncles and the way we were brought up, and the church and everything, it's all lost. It's all lost. We just completely assimilated. And I see people who are non-white here and all that, and you guys have been around a long time. We all assimilated into America, people. This culture is just crazy. Whatever color we are at this time. It is. And the sins of our guests have the same sins we have, like obesity, big time on people on the street. A lot of obese people. Hoarders. You want to talk about hoarders? Some people are so obsessed with their garbage cans and stuff, and it just doesn't look like anything. We have to stop people from bringing stuff into our house, you know. But you look at them and you can see that they're hoarders. You can see that they're obese. You can see all that stuff. But hey, man, in a world where housing shortage is so epidemic, people will own 1 and 2 or 3 houses or 4 houses. We have a summer house and we have a winter house. You want to talk about hoarding? Having more stuff than you need? The rich do it just all the time. It's still a sin. And it still should look ugly. Because on the bottom you can tell it's not pretty. But you know, at the top is what makes it all ugly for the rest of us. Because that's how the system operates. Empires operate so pyramids work, 1%ers control everything. Yeah, it was the way the Pharaoh did it, it's where the Syrians did it, it's where the Babylonians did it, it's what the Persians did it, it's what the Greeks did it, and then the Romans did it the best, and then they put all the book together and called it a canon. And the rest is Western human civilization. I think it's what we call that white. But not for long, because the demographics is everything. And the empire don't care. But the God of empire don't care. The powers and principalities don't care who's on the top or who's on the bottom. The powers and principalities just want the process to keep going. Winner or loser, we need our wars. Winner or loser, we need our empire boiling in. I mean, that's the lesson of the last 5 empires that are enshrined in this book, and it's clearly that the Jesus people originally understood this and saying, whoa, our problem is we associate our God with wealth, war, and empire. Yeah, and if you happen to want to follow the real Jesus, as I'm suggesting, these days are the worst because I'm trying to convince a country to follow the radical Jew from the first century and the works of mercy and love and unconditional love and loving your enemy in a country where pretty much everybody believes in the same Jesus I'm talking about, but they don't know what the hell I'm talking about.